Welcome to Doodle Lounge. As it's Monday morning, I thought I'd talk to you about habits. We've all got habits, some of which we are perhaps pleased with because they get us from A to B without having to think about it. Some of which are perhaps not so good habits. And have you ever been in a position where you wanted to break habits? What I wanted to do today is give you a short demonstration why I believe that breaking habits is potentially a complete waste of time, but I do give you an alternative at the end. I've got my props ready. Starting off first of all with habitual thinking. If we very simplistically look at what happens in the brain, we get stimulated all day long. We hear sounds, we are in front of a computer, perhaps people talk to us. And if we were to really illustrate simplistically what happens in the brain, you have a stimuli, after which we get a perceptual response, an emotional response, a physical response, followed by an action. So if we take a really simple example, there may be a really loud noise outside, and if that's something that doesn't happen very often, then the stimulus is the loud noise. I may have a perception about that, i.e. is it dangerous, do I have to go and take some action? An emotional response, i.e. maybe anxious or fear. A physical response that I need to get up and go and check out what it is, and then I will actually go and do that. Now of course this happens very, very quickly without having to think about it consciously. Where habitual thinking comes in is that where that particular sequence happens over and over again and I don't actually have to stop and think about it. So for instance, you may have a fear or a phobia about deadlines or finishing work at a certain time, or you may have an issue with regards to self-esteem or self-confidence, and when somebody makes a particular comment that affects you, you'll go through stimulus, perceptual response, emotional response, physical response and action. When that gets rehearsed over and over again, it's always tricky working with domino stones because you never know what might happen, but hopefully it goes all well in one go. That habitual response, when it gets rehearsed, you can liken it a little bit to if you were to train in the gym and you work a muscle over and over again and it becomes stronger and stronger, and after a while, in this particular case, you don't really have to think about it because any kind of trigger, say for instance if we take the example of fear of a deadline, you don't have to think about, oh my goodness, go through these various steps, but simply what will happen is that you get the stimulus and straight away you get the outcome, you get the reaction, which may be panic or worry, or if it's something to do with self-esteem or self-confidence, somebody may say something here and immediately you'll have a reaction to it. Now, we obviously live in a world where there is quite a lot of information about habits and we shouldn't do certain things, like we shouldn't eat certain foods and we should not be lazy, and so a lot of the time people are very, very conscious about wanting to break habits. We want to make sure that we don't do certain things. And most of the time people's emphasis is on what they don't want to do. So perhaps they don't want to feel insecure, they don't want to feel low self-esteem, they don't want to eat unhealthy foods, they don't want to be sitting on the sofa because they know they should exercise. And just get my domino stones up. So what happens is that when people want to break the habit, so not be stimulated and get the exact same outcome, they put all their energy in the very thing they don't want to be doing. I mustn't drink too much alcohol, I mustn't eat, I mustn't feel bad about myself, I mustn't say those things, I mustn't criticize myself. So all our energy and our focus goes into what we shouldn't be doing. But everything in life that you give energy to, what you feed, will grow. So if you don't want to do certain things and you keep giving it your energy, you keep looking to diets, you're counting calories if you would want to lose some weight, then all your energy is going towards the very thing you don't want to be doing. If you have an issue with self-esteem or self-confidence, you constantly tell yourself that you mustn't criticize and you mustn't blush and you mustn't be talking badly about yourself. Unfortunately, again, you're putting all your energy in the very thing that you don't want. So if you're looking back at this particular sequence of events, then sometimes when people say, I want to break the habit, they perhaps put all their energy or focus to stimulus. So that's rather difficult, because if you want to change the stimulus, then you could get to a point where you never ever actually leave the house, because ultimately you're going to have to face people at work, your friends, your family, and things may get said, things may happen that will affect you. Equally, people say, well, I'll have to change it at the emotional response, I mustn't feel like that. But the problem with emotional responses are that sometimes they're very deeply rooted, and they can come from a very long time ago. When we're in a physical response, sometimes it is too late to do something about it. So if you get anxious, or you get stressed, or you get angry, this is almost too late to do something about it. Where we can intercept this sequence is at the perceptual response, because what you see depends on where you stand. In every single situation in your life, you can teach yourself to take a different perspective. That is not necessarily as easy as it sounds, but you can certainly learn to look at something from a different angle and therefore see a different view. So if we go back to the domino stones, I'm just going to put these away. The world's focused on breaking the habit, looking at what we shouldn't be doing. Whereas if I want to intercept this sequence of events, then I can train myself to look at something from a different perspective. So if I would like to not be lazy, rather than focusing all my energy on not sitting on the sofa and not driving the car too much, I could actually put all my energy into being more active, going out for walks with the dog, taking my kids out and be active in that way. If I don't want to be eating bad foods, rather than perhaps calorie count and associate and surround myself with people who are not necessarily, they're trying to do all the same thing, I could actually put my energies into perhaps growing some food in the garden, making new recipes, inviting friends and cooking for other people, some very healthy recipes. If I have an issue with regards to my own self-esteem and self-confidence, rather than telling myself that I shouldn't be thinking badly of myself, I could actually recall to myself all the things that I do like about myself. I could write affirmations and trying to really educate myself that there is something to be positive about. So if you intercept things at the perceptual response, rather than being stimulated and getting the same response all the time, or putting all my energy quite uselessly into trying to not do something which actually only strengthens my bond with it, I can very simply take out a few domino stones. That's only step one, because now at least I am aware of the fact that I would like to change something. When I knock these over, I'm not going to get the same outcome. But it doesn't just stop there. I need to do something a bit more. It's not about breaking the habit. Step one, I've got to intercept, get a different perception about something and understanding that I don't want that outcome, I want a different outcome. And therefore, I'm going to create what's called new behaviour. So instead of breaking the habit, I'm going to create new behaviour. Now, that's not something that happens very easily or very quickly. That is something you've got to work on a little bit. I'm ever so pleased that these dominoes don't stay upright. So, this is me working on things over time. If you're accustomed to sitting on the sofa and all of a sudden you think, I'm going to put some energy into going out for walks, perhaps visiting a gym, being active, dancing, climbing, whatever, then the first few times you do that, I feel alien. The very first time you sat in a car and learned how to drive, you had to think about your mirror, you had to think about your gears, you had to think about all the other traffic on the road. But over time, that becomes automatic. Similarly so when you create new behaviour. I'm now no longer giving myself a hard time that I'm not doing any exercise or I'm eating incorrect foods or I'm talking badly about myself. I'm actively investing in creating new behaviour. I want to try and get a different outcome, perhaps be more active, perhaps be a more positive person. If I spend enough time doing that, and there's lots and lots of different tips, I'll write articles on that over in the future, but you can use things like affirmations, even just little post-it notes that you stick around the place whereby you remind yourself of what you're trying to do. Like anything new you have to learn, then after a while you build a new set of muscles, if you like, that give you a different outcome. And then when you get that same stimulus, you get a different outcome every single time. So focus on creating new behaviour. You have got all the potential to change whatever you like, but it's not a question of flicking a switch. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of effort and a little bit of awareness. But it's altogether a much more successful method than trying to put all your energies in focusing on not doing something. So if you've got any particular habits that you're not quite so pleased with, try and thinking about them of creating new behaviour. Today's Monday, you've got a whole week to practice it, and I hope you've got a great time with it this week. Good luck.